What is up, everybody? Unrested back here, and I don't have much time today, so if I run into a copycat question, I'm just gonna say repeat and move on. Let's start with the first one. Dennis says, on the 13th of August, I will be in Osaka. Can you recommend me one place I should visit which is not so common, maybe a good district or an amazing restaurant or izakaya or something? Something that's not so common. I guess you could go check out Club Cobra down in Amemura. That would be something not as many people would go to, especially those big fat tourists you see with cameras around their neck. Jazzy says, what are some good places for non-native people in Osaka and any other places in Japan that aren't very crowded as Tokyo would be, but aren't too far away from some good major areas like nature parks, malls, game stores? What is the sizing of clothing there? Okay, well, let's start out with your first question. And what we've got here is you are asking where can you live rural but still have access to lots of malls and everything like that. Probably you're not going to find too many places that have the best of both worlds, just like any other country. Your rural parts are rural and your urban sprawl is your urban sprawl. You're going to have to take a train into the city. You could go ahead and live out in a more Inaka type area such as Kanagawa. Maybe Nagoya is a little bit of the in-between. It's got a little bit of countryside, but you still got big malls. You've got Nagoya-jo to go visit. That's my suggestion, maybe. What is the sizing of clothing there, ranging from they cater to plus sizes like the US? Plus sizes are extremely hard to find here. Most people in Japan are of a very slim build, even the tallest of tall people. Pretty much what you're going to find is anything that was a large, medium, or small in America. Small would probably be almost a large here in Japan, and it would go down from size there. Big bone people, I'm sorry, but Japan is hard to find clothes in. Are there college grants like those in the US? Guess what? Only people applying to college would know about college grants, and I am not applying to college. That's for you to find out because college is your future. Ernesto says, how is disturbance of the public scene or restricted to regarding playing music and or playing musical instruments? There are areas in which you can busk and go busking. That means performing on the street, which I have learned from my viewers. Thank you very much for the lesson in English, everyone. There are areas, and you'll already see most likely other people performing on the street there. You can join in if you want. Don't be surprised if you do get asked to move, if you do find your location has been in front of a business the whole time that you didn't notice was there. I myself have sold pictures on the street before and done quite well, not been bothered by any police or security guards or anything like that. But there's a time and a place. Scope it out first before you do it. Obviously, if you do it in the wrong area, you're not going to get arrested or anything like that, but you will be asked to leave. James says, I'm currently a college student planning to get a job over there when I graduate, but I'm a bit worried about student loans. How did you handle / are handling your student loans? I paid them all back already. That's how I handled them. If you have any while in Japan. Now, I just made sure I paid them back before I got here. You got to remember, when I got here, I was 27, so I'd already been out of college for 4 years. I busted my ass to pay them back, and now I'm okay. I didn't try to pay them off here. Would I suggest trying to pay them off here? It can be done, and I have known other people who can do it. On average, your average teaching job is going to make anywhere from the lowest being $1,500 a month up to $3,000 being the highest. Obviously, if you're a saver and not a spender, you can possibly pay back your student loan over a very long time. Josh says, I have heard when looking for a job in Japan, it is common that you will need a photo of yourself in your business clothes. That's true. However, I would like to know if employers will pay attention to hair in these, as I have mine spiked up. Yes, they'll still pay attention to hair in those. I would suggest spiking it down. Honestly, if you want a wacky haircut, obviously I myself indulge in a wacky haircut, as a few of my videos, as you can see. Start your job with a professional haircut. Obviously, first impressions mean everything in any country. Once you've gained the trust and you've earned your way up into that company, any haircut will probably be okay as long as it's not too insane. Just don't go with wild colors and you'll be fine. James says, providing fluent Japanese, etc., etc., how supportive are the government / local city council to Gaikokujin starting up their own businesses? For example, I plan to set up my own IT repair shop and business and wonder whether they'd support or hinder in preference to maybe Japanese set business. Okay, this is an okay question to ask, that's fine. But here's number one thing, they're not even going to worry so much about how good your Japanese is. If you really want to start a business here, there is a certain amount of money that you need to prove you have to start a business here. And I am not 100% certain on this amount, so do not quote me on this. Obviously, anyone who knows the absolute correct amount can put it in the comments and say, Scott, this is what it is. But last time I remember checking, it was somewhere around 83,000 American dollars that you need to prove that you have to start a business. And you can actually get a business visa through that. And it actually is quite well promoted here in Japan. They'll definitely indulge you in that because any country wants someone with money to come and live there and invest their money in that country. So they're not going to try and shoot you down on that unless your business is something insane. IT, obviously not that crazy. You have a chance. Devin says, so this question is inspired by Natsumatsuri video you posted on the 27th. If you haven't seen those, you guys got to go back and watch it. I'm not going to talk about it right now. I hope all JFAQers on there had a chance to watch it. Me too. I was wondering, you've been in Japan for a while now, and I was interested in the moments of your life there. What encapsulated with great sentiment and cherished in each of your successes and your proudest moments became evident? Like, suppose some of the moments of clarity could be places where you felt touched on a more spiritual side by nature, your loving family, and even what it is to come and look forward to. Perhaps speak briefly on a few loved unrested moments. Okay, gosh, there's so much I could do over this. I suppose maybe I should take the time to put aside some time and make a JFAQ over reflecting, since I've done almost 300 videos at this point. You know, obviously the major moments in my life here stand true to things like obviously getting married, having my first kid. I think those are pretty major for me in the sense that I never came here with the intentions to even find a girl to date, let alone marry. On top of that, I guess I would say probably the more spiritual or touching moments to me are kind of after, I'd say really they started to happen after I had been here 2 years. I really started to feel like not only could I accept Japan, but Japan could accept me. I could finally speak the language. I could finally start to understand people. People could finally understand me. I started to learn the wa and the harmony of the workplace. I started to understand how to meld into Japanese society and assimilate to the cultural non-taboos and what would be deviant and what would be outside of there, and at the same time become very comfortable with myself socially here in Japan. Really, after 2 years, I really came to this kind of epiphany moment of realizing that I had done all that. And I guess that's kind of a touching moment for me. But like I said, I'd like to actually take a time. Devin, it's a good subject. I really should take a time and just do a waxing nostalgic video. Com says, hi Scott, is it hard for Asian American to become an English teacher since most agencies would rather hire a white person? No, not necessarily. There's definitely, I know a lot of Asian-looking English teachers from Australia, America, etc. Not sure about Japan, but I read that in China, parents will pull their kids out of school and complain. Well, that's China. Japan's not as... I don't think they're as judgmental as that. I'm sure it probably has happened somewhere here in Japan, so I shouldn't say it's totally out of the question. But you can get a job. It's not impossible. Jeremy said, hypothetically so, I'm strolling down the street in Osaka, doing my usual gaijin thing, and some police stop me and ask me some questions. After that, they start to think I'm suspicious and ask to see some sort of ID. So I say, "Chotto matte," and reach into my back pocket and think to myself, holy shit, I don't have my identification. How the heck should someone handle this situation, Scott? Okay, my advice to you would be, first of all, apologize, because you are supposed to be carrying your gaijin card on you all the time. Obviously, you don't need your passport if you have a gaijin card, but if you're not carrying one of those forms of ID, you really should, because it actually is required by law. My advice, if you're absolutely stuck in that moment and you can't get it, just say, oh hey, I just stepped out of my apartment. If you're close to your apartment, that is. Like, I would say within 400 meters of your apartment, say, oh, I'm sorry, I just stepped out to get something from the convenience here. Can you guys come on back? You can come into my apartment and everything. Like, just be really straightforward and let them, if you're opening your bag to look for it, let them clearly see into your bag and everything to really erase suspicion. And then also invite them back to your place. Say, come on back to my place. I'll get you guys some tea. You can sit down and just chill out for a second. I'll go get my ID. And that'll really obviously break down the barriers of any kind of tension. They do have the right to ask to look at your ID. You can ask them, though. I always ask them, what's your reason for looking at it? I want to hear an answer. some will just be assholes and just say, "Oh, これは僕の仕事," but some will actually give you, a full setsume and explanation of some crime that has happened in the area, and they're kind of suspicious of everyone, and they're checking IDs on everyone. I had one time where they actually had a person who had stolen a purse in my apartment, and they asked to see my ID, and asked to go into my apartment to see if they were hiding in there. At first I was a little bit like, what, really? But they literally caught the person running down the stairwell just like minutes later. So they had their reasons, and they were very legit. Okay, next one up is Nina. She says, I've noticed that in a lot of Japanese films on Netflix, the characters have been acting dramatic and making huge scenes in public places, and it's very contrary to the Japanese being very private and public. I realize that it's of course a movie and not reality, but in the vast amount of Japanese cinema, I'm sure you have seen, compared to about 7 movies I have seen, is it typical that in movies the characters act way more outrageous in public than real Japanese people would ever dare to act? Yeah, definitely 100%. Like, the stuff you see happening in those movies, or even TV show dramas and stuff like that, is totally out of the norm. Nobody in Japan would really make a huge scene like that. Not to say I've never seen somebody make a scene in Japan. I have seen it. I'm sure I could go on to a whole JFAQs of little, sideshows I've seen on the street of people acting wild, especially when people get drunk here in Japan, because being drunk in public is not always something that gets people arrested. But for the most part, Japanese people are very, very calm in public. Sarah says, which place in Osaka has the same reputation as Roppongi? No place in Osaka has the same reputation in Roppongi. Roppongi is horrible compared to any place that's bad in Osaka. No, you know what? There is no place that compares. I'm not even going to say anything because I don't want anything degraded, because it's not true. There's no place close to how bad Roppongi is. Andrew says, are there any hipsters in Japan? If so, how do they dress and act? Boy, Japan invented being a hipster, man. Dude, let me just tell you something. If you think you have any kind of hipster style or a cool badass style back in your own country, this is the same for me, you're going to come here and be fucking blown away, because everyone here is a million years ahead of any Western country's style. I promise you. I thought I was fucking badass styling when I got here. And I got here, I look like a bum on the street compared to these hipsters. They're not going to call it hipster here in Japan. They're just goddamn stylish, okay? You'll check it out. You'll see what I mean. You'll get here and you'll be like, oh, hipster, whatever, man. These guys are like major years ahead of us. Volivia says, I have this app on my phone that shows me how to write the strokes of hiragana, but it writes it how it would be typed on the computer. What if someone were to accidentally write hiragana the way the strokes are typed? Would Japanese speakers think it's silly or weird? Yeah, it's the same thing as watching someone write the alphabet in a strange way. Like if you saw someone, instead of someone write an S like this, if they started from the bottom and write it up, it would look strange to you. And you see Japanese people do that sometimes, like write the alphabet in totally wacky, weird ways you've never thought of. The same thing goes for us gaijin. I'm sure they see us write kanji in some lame-ass ways that's hilarious to them. It's okay. They're not going to say anything to you. They're not going to be like, what the fuck? Like, they're just going to be like, well, that's cool, you can write kanji, because most gaijin can't. Aaron says, I watched a recent documentary on sushi and how the wildlife in the sea is on the decline. Is the Japanese government doing anything to help stop or reduce the illegal tuna fishing in the Pacific? Now, you know what? I've heard two sides to this story. I have heard that the ocean is being overfished, and then I've heard other critics say that that's total BS, that it would be nearly impossible to overfish the ocean. What is the Japanese government doing about it? I don't have really any kind of information on that. It's not something brought up a lot in the news, or even something I've researched personally. Obviously, if I started to see a decline in tuna sushi, I would definitely make a JFAQ about it, so if that does become a topic, I will talk about it. Noah says, how common is it for high school kids to have arubaito, a part-time job? What about in poorer areas? It's pretty common for very low-class high schools that have a bad reputation for kids to have an arubaito, but kids who go to high schools that plan to have them go to college usually don't have an arubaito because they spend nearly all their damn days studying. It's impossible for them to go to college if they don't. Tino says, what would you do differently if you had the chance to go back in time? This is more directed towards when you first arrived in Japan. Important lessons learned. What would you try, and totally different approaches? Number one, I would study Japanese way harder. I studied pretty hard, but I studied books, and that was kind of stupid. I should have just been out talking to people instead of trying to look at some lame books that were old and full of gibberish that no one speaks anymore, because a lot of those books are really obsolete, you'll find once you get here. Also, I wish I would have talked to people in Osaka before I got here and learned that Kanto-ben and Osaka-ben are completely different, and that they have totally different suffixes at the end. So that's a little bit of advice for past Scott. Matt says, are there any instances of gaijin joining or working in the Yakuza in Japan? No, not that I know of. At the most you would ever hear of. Some people would say, well, Koreans are in the Yakuza. Those Koreans are pretty much Japanese, okay? I don't care what you say. You're going to be like, no, they're full-blooded Koreans who've lived in Japan a long time. Dude, they are Japanese. They are pretty much 100% Japanese. Or some people are going to say, well, I heard the Russian mafia. That's the Russian mafia organized crime working with Yakuza organized crime. That's not a white Russian person being in the Yakuza. You have it totally wrong. There are no white people in the Yakuza. Why people ever ask me, do people ever think you're in the Yakuza? Yeah, I'm the only white guy. They call me the Great White Secret. The Oki Hakujin Himitsu. That's my Yakuza code name. the big white secret. Okay, Jordan says, what was your first impressions of Japan? I thought Shinjuku was awesome. My first impressions were that I could totally understand why the director of Blade Runner understood this to be a very cyberpunk type atmosphere here in Osaka. I don't know how many of you actually know it, but the horizon and cityscape of Osaka was actually taken a lot for the inspiration of Blade Runner, and you can really see it coming to the city, just how cyberpunk and urban noir it is. It's an amazing thing, and that's something I absolutely love about Osaka. It's so gritty, dirty. There's overpasses over overpasses, wires connected to every damn aspect of every alley you ever walk through. But the nice thing is that there's not all that crime and stuff that comes with it. Alright, moving on is Jarrett. He says, is a salary as an ALT enough to live on in Japan? That depends on how much you work, Jarrett, and how good your company's willing to pay. For the most part, ALT jobs pay the worst, and one of the worst parts of an ALT job is you don't get paid during winter or summer break for the most part. Sometimes you're looking at as low as $1,500 a month. I've seen as low as $900 a month, and $900 a month. Maybe you could scratch by in the countryside, but if you try to live in a major city like Osaka or Tokyo, you would be starving. You'd be dying. Alright, let's see here. Blaine says, is the quality of your degree taken into consideration for ALT work? Not at all. For example, if I get a worthless degree from an uncredited online school, will I be considered ALT worthy? Now, that's not going to work, because guess what? The ALT company totally won't care about what your degree is, but guess who does? Immigration. Immigration checks out and researches your degree. So if you try to use one of those that's not legit, they're going to tell you, guess what? This isn't legit here. Go get a real one. Bye. Next is Michael. He says, do you find that having children has improved your Japanese? They are going to be native speakers and currently learning their language, so they don't need to think about grammar rules and word order as much as adults learning a second language. This is very true. I know your children are very young, but do you ever find yourself picking up new words from them or hear them use grammar rule that, oh, that makes sense? Yeah, man, Michael, dude, you pretty much put the words in my mouth right there. Holy cow, you know my situation. Yes. I guess one of the great things about having a bilingual kid who is learning two languages, one of which that you want to become better at yourself, is the fact that anything that you missed in the most remedial aspects of that language, that child has to learn, and you have to learn with them. Because obviously you're going to help them with their schoolwork, their hiragana, their katakana, and then eventually their kanji. So one day, even though I can speak but I can't write very well, I probably will learn how to write and read very well due to the fact that I will be helping my kid with their own homework. I do plan on sitting down and getting copies of almost every book that he has to go through and doing it with him and saying, see, look, your dad has to do the same work, so you can't complain. I have to learn the language with you as far as writing. As far as words, for the most part, every single word my kid says I definitely already know. But you're right, there are some grammar things that he'll say, and then I'll ask my wife, I'll be like, can you say it like that? And she'll say, yeah, that's okay. It's a really simple way to say it, but yeah. I'll be like, I did not know that. Okay, interesting. So, yeah, you're right. Like I said, you've pretty much put the words in my mouth there. Good pointing out there, Michael. Jack says, Jack, I hope I'm saying your name right every time. I'm not sure. I see you write a lot of questions here. They're always really good. I'm hoping I'm not mispronouncing your name. Jack says, in Japan, it's important to try to fit in restaurants from what I've heard. Sometimes the staff will see that you're a foreigner and offer you silverware instead of chopsticks. Yes, this is true. Including English menus, too. They'll be like, here's your English menu, you English-reading English person who can't read any kanji. And, if I'm with a Japanese coworker or friend or something, what should I do? Should I use the chopsticks like everyone else, or should I use silverware? Dude, if you can use chopsticks, use the chopsticks. And what if I'm bad with chopsticks? Okay, if you're really bad with chopsticks, it's okay to use the silverware. No one's gonna be offended or anything like that. Come on, man, you gotta know how to, come on, use those chopsticks, man. Start practicing now before you get here, man. Don't come here with a necklace that has a fork and a knife on it, goddammit. If I choose the silverware, is that a bad thing? No, it's okay. After all, I'm going against what everyone else is doing because everyone else is using chopsticks. So would the phrase, oh God, the steak that sticks out gets hammered out. Oh, you've written, okay. This is actually the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. Okay. Be important here, or am I just overthinking? Yeah, you are way overthinking this, Jack. Dude, no one's gonna care. First of all, you are gaijin, so pretty much a lot of your faux pas already are apologized for just due to the fact that you are gaijin. I know it sounds kind of racist or whatever, but just deal with it. You should be able to know how to use chopsticks if you're coming to Japan. Please at least know how to do that. Come on, man. You're gonna be like my dad who comes here and is like, I can't do it, you know? He looks like some paraplegic insect when he tries to like pick stuff up with chopsticks. And you should at least know how to do that, dude. Come on, man. Get ready to use chopsticks. If you have to absolutely use the silverware, no one's gonna care. But I highly recommend you come here with at least some skill. One thing I couldn't do with chopsticks is I couldn't chop anything up with chopsticks. That was really hard for me, and that was more due to a strength type thing. Obviously, I didn't eat with chopsticks every day in America, and you have to build up strength in your hand, and eventually you'll get so good with chopsticks, you will be able to, like, cut meat. You'll be like, what the hell are you talking about, Scott? Trust me, you'll be able to, like, cut meat and bread and all kinds of things with chopsticks by squeezing it so hard it breaks. And that's how strong your hands will get. Don't be worried if you can't do that when you come here. I couldn't do that either. But man, at least be able to like pick some stuff up and put it in your mouth. Like practice with like beans and jello if you want to get really damn good. Alright, moving on. Wow, I spent a lot of time on that one. Tomoya, I'm sorry about yesterday yelling at you. I apologize for that. So today I'm going to answer your question nice like, hey Scott, I have a question for you and I'm sorry about what I asked during your J News. It's okay. Everything is forgiven. However, my question is, since Japan's government has policies that reflects their past, I think you mean like reflects their past. He's like reflects their past. Do you think it may push China and Korea into war against each other? I see what you're saying about like a lot of this island war type stuff and the politics being constantly thrown at each other and not going to each other's meetings and stuff as far as seeing each other eye to eye. It will never come to war. I know a lot of people talk about this, that we're on the edge of it all the time. Trust me, man, none of these countries want to go to war. That means a hell of a lot. Number one, if anyone ever goes to war with Japan, they also go to war with America. I think a lot of people don't understand that. People probably think Japan are really afraid of North Korea. Dude, we're not afraid of North Korea here. If they even try to touch us or even come close to getting a missile close to us, America will annihilate them for us. Trust me, they want to. They're on the edge of wanting to. They're biting at the bit, trying to get, North Korea wiped off the map. But it's not going to happen. You don't need to worry about that too much. But I can see where you would see this happening, but it's actually not something either country is about to jump into. It takes a lot of money and a lot of lives and stuff they don't want to waste. Let's see. Kayla is next. She says, hey, Scott, I was just listening to some Malice Mixer, and I was wondering if older defunct bands like them are still popular in the visual K community and just in society in general. Yeah, a lot of defunct bands are actually really popular. Here's one thing I will say about Japanese people. When they find a band that they like, they are loyal as all hell, man. Like, if they find a band they like in high school, they will love them until they're on their deathbed. And I am not joking at all. Like, they'll talk about them years and years and years and years later and probably still collect every album. And if you ask them why, you'd be like, why don't you just download their songs? They'll be like, but how do I get the album art then? Like, they're seriously hardcore fans when they get into their music. Don't ever question how loyal a Japanese person is to their music, man. Those people are hardcore. Dustin says, Scott, as a fellow artist, what is the art scene like in your area? Any experience with sketch groups, and is it difficult for a foreigner to meet up with other artists? Not at all. If anything, I would say artists that I've met in Japan are the most open people to meeting foreign people. You know, as an artist, your mind is usually always very liberal in the fact that it's open to all different types of ideas for inspiration, if nothing else. And this is also part of them meeting the foreign community. They want to meet people who have other artistic abilities even outside of anime and manga. They want to see designs and artistic skills and techniques outside of that. When they do see stuff that I draw that I don't really think it's that good all the time. Some of the stuff I draw, I'm like, this could be a hell of a lot better. They love it because it's not the technique that they already know, that tradition of anime and manga techniques, which are awesome. I highly approve of them and highly think they're incredibly skilled. But they want to see new stuff. They want to see new ideas. And that's the way a lot of artists are all over the world. I've found that artists are very international in general. Alright, Nick says, it's well known that cigarette smoking is pretty common in Japan. Does the same apply to pipes and cigars? Nah, not so much. I've seen pipes and cigars here, but they're really kind of a rare thing. Maybe the only person you'd see with a pipe is an oyaji, an old man or something. Not quite as popular as it would be in America. Chewing tobacco, I have never seen chewing tobacco. It might exist here, but maybe it's only in tobacco shops, which are kind of rare actually. So, not so common. Okay, Vanessa is next. She says, it's 5 in the morning here in Sweden now, so excuse me for any mistakes. That's okay. I apologize if I ever get too angry about any people's mistakes, especially spelling mistakes. I really don't care. That's okay. Let's see. I don't think anyone's asked this before. How are the dietists viewed in Japan? Do you mean people who are doing different types of diets? There are a million types of diets in Japan. People love to do diets. People are always checking out brand new diets. Diets are a big fad here, man. Every type of diet you can possibly imagine has probably been tried here. People love diets in Japan. I have another question. I am going to Japan, Osaka, this winter, and I'm a gluten intolerant. No wheat, rye, or barley. I read on the internet that it might be a challenge for me to find food I can eat. Is this outdated information? I think that might be outdated because, guess what, Vanessa? You're lucky. My first roommate who I ever lived with here in Japan she couldn't eat gluten. And she did okay. I remember she ate like a lot of rice crackers. You gotta remember, there's a lot of rice-based stuff. And if I'm correct, I think you can eat a lot of rice-based stuff. Is that true? Think about how many things in Japan are made with rice. I mean, there is buttloads of stuff, so you should be okay. My roommate was totally fine. I mean, she didn't starve. She actually gained weight while she was here, so I think you'll be fine. Michael says, being in Japan for as long as you have you had any experience with people coming and going? Yes. What are the 5 main reasons people go back to their country? Okay, 5 main reasons. Okay, let's see if I can list them off really quick. Number 1, food. And this isn't any special order. Number 1, food. Number 2, homesick. Number 3, never learn the language and become bitter. Number 4, can't adapt to Japanese society. And number 5, lose their job or lose all their money or become financially or emotionally bankrupt. Let's see. Peter says, now that it is summertime, what are some of the popular activities other than festivals? Also, are there any unique summertime activities specific to Osaka? And do you have any specific traditions during these months since you've been to Japan? Okay, traditions during the summer months. You've got Tanabata, in which we write our wishes and hang them from a bamboo stick. We have the watermelon break-in, where you go to a beach and you smash a watermelon kind of like you would a piñata. Anything specific to Osaka, not that I know of, but I'm sure there are matsuris that have special things that are only done in Osaka. Obviously, yes, you have a lot of your festivals. You have a lot of the games that rotate around those festivals. Those are the top 2 I can think of off the top of my head. There's probably more. I'm sorry I can't list more, but I'm trying to get through the last little bit of these questions. Peter is next. He says, Michael is next. He says, how expensive, okay, it's spelled wrong, but that's okay. How expensive is it to buy a house in Japan? Is it cheaper buying a house in the US? Okay, so where in Japan? Because prices range just like they do in the US. If you buy a house in California, it's more expensive than like Oklahoma, right? So that doesn't make any sense, right? You gotta say specifically where you're talking about. Let's see, Mahad's got 3 questions here. I'm not gonna keep saying his name, I'm just gonna say it once. Mahad, hey Scott, I wanted to know, do Japanese homes have basements? Most parts they don't have basements. They do tend to have attics though, but there probably are some basements here, but they're kind of very rare. I was wondering, if I decide to apply for the JET program after my college years, with that said, can I still come to Japan even though I have a student loan? Yes, you'll be fine. I've already answered this question. You can obviously pay back a student loan. Next, what are some differences you've noticed between American nerds and Japanese nerds? Japanese nerds are even more hardcore than American nerds. Are they treated better? You know, they used to be treated really well after a movie called Densha no Otoko came out, in which an otaku saves the life of a woman who's being attacked. Well, she doesn't save a life, but he helps a woman who's being attacked by a drunk oyaji on the train. They got a lot of respect after that movie. Unfortunately, the respect for them really declined after the Akihabara stabbing. If you don't know anything about the Akihabara stabbing, you can go look it up now and see that this is kind of a thing that kind of made the otaku scene kind of more of a pariah. Slowly, little by little, it's getting more popular again, but it kind of put a bad name to them, unfortunately. Finally, do they have hookah lounges in Japan? They're not so common. Just to give you an example, my area of Osaka is hardcore urban sprawl. Tons of bars, probably thousands of bars. And I can only think of 2 that I've ever been to that have hookah, so not so popular. Guys, that was the last question right there. Excellent, I got through all of them. I'm so proud of myself. Guys, this has been another JFAQ. Our next thing coming up will be a Nihon vid, and it will be on either tomorrow or Thursday. It's about Oji Jinja Matsuri. Go ahead and check that out next. Thank you for your great questions today. I actually don't think I ever said repeat through the whole thing, so you guys did awesome today. Let's stick to this. We've got J News on Monday, JFAQ on Tuesday, Nihon vid on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, and then finally Saturday, Oroshi Saturday, in which you get to learn all about scary stories from Japan. Until next time, I'm Unrested. This is JFAQ. Have a good one.